wait a minute or two to make sure everything's set up. I'm going to start at the top of the hour with the live stream, and we're going to have some fun today. Looking forward to this. So let's do that. Got to figure out a way to see what y'all are seeing too. Okay, that works. Then let me do that. Okay, hang on. What are we streaming today? Thinking out loud. With Dr. Jeff Ross. That's me. Summary. Episode number 2. Let's see, cover image. Don't have one. Maybe I can do this. No, it's got to be a. Nope, has to be a URL. Category. Let's say finance. I already did all this, but for some reason it's not sticking. So I'm going to do this over again. Bitcoin, investing, macroeconomics. What else should we say? Hedge fund, since I run a hedge fund. I don't have a goal. It does not no, this does not contain nudity or pornographic content. Cover image. Let's see, guys. What should I do for my cover image? I don't have a. I guess I could do my website, even though I don't really want to. Let's see if that works. Also doesn't. Is it working? Let's see here. Apologies for this, guys. I had done all this earlier, and now it's not working. That's why we're working on it. Is so that this stuff doesn't happen live, but it's going to happen for a little bit. Hey, welcome, Quasi. So yeah, let's see here. How do I get this to do something here? Let's try forward slashes. We seem to be stuck again, which is unfortunate. Why are you not working? I really wish I had somebody with me who knew how to do this stuff, because I certainly don't. I already put in my stuff here. Yes. Why are you not going on to Nostr? Or excuse me, on his app stream? Shoot. I would think it would just start working, but that shows what I don't know. Okay, hang with me, everybody. We're going to keep trying to figure this out. I do have my own stream host. I already filled all this out. Why are you not working? Should I try it again? Thinking out loud with Dr. Jeff Ross. Episode 2. Finance. Still not letting me save down here, which is annoying. Maybe I put my stream URL here. I already did all that before. See, here it is. Zapstream, but it's not going to Zapstream. Shoot, guys. I don't know why I can't get this to work. It won't let me save it and get it to Zapstream. That's really disappointing. To go live, copy and paste your stuff below into the streaming software settings, press start streaming, which I did. I put it all here. Dang it. Well, hey, it says it's live here. Hey, there we go. Maybe it is working. That's exciting. So, hey, if anybody is on Zapstream, put a focus more on Zapstream. Let me mute that. Okay, I'm going to assume we're working now. And if you guys can, I would really appreciate it if you could use the chat function on Zapstream mostly, and I'll focus on that. It's hard for me to focus on what's happening on over on YouTube, but I'll try to do that as well. Okay. Okay. So let's get cracking. Here we are. Hey everybody. It's 9:05. Took me like 5 minutes to figure that out. So this is episode number 2, working out the kinks, thinking out loud. I call it mainly because I just have lots of thoughts about things. Sometimes it's finance related, sometimes it's not. But I think I'm old enough now and I've been around the block now. And as a physician, former physician, I retired about a month ago, again, second retirement. As a former physician and as a hedge fund manager currently, and, having done lots of other things in life, I just want to share what I know with people. I will tell you to be just totally straight up with you guys. Like, I am not here to gain followers. I am not here to get subscriptions. In fact, there's nothing to subscribe to. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, but that's not my goal. I'm not here to make money off of you. I'm not here to get advertising dollars. I'm not here to get new patients. I'm not here to get new clients for my business. This has nothing to do with my business. I'm just here to share what I know and hopefully get some other interesting people as we get going in this podcast. It's not like a typical podcast where I'm going to like interview people and like try to get famous people on here to talk about stuff. I'll have my friends come on and we'll talk about life and Bitcoin and finance and investing and all that kind of stuff, or or not, or it'll just be me kind of blathering. So hopefully some of you guys will find value. I would encourage you to ask questions on YouTube. Obviously in the comment section, put your questions so that I can see them. I see on Zapstream that it looks like there's 5 viewers, but I don't see any comments yet. So if you guys are able to make a comment here, I'm going to actually comment right here. Let's see if that works. My first comment. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so that works. Good. Okay, so hopefully you guys will start commenting, and if you have any questions along the way, let me know. But I'm just going to get started. Okay, so here we go. Here's my little formal presentation. Like I said earlier, this is not just another podcast. It's just me and the occasional guest thinking out loud, literally just kind of sharing my thoughts for the day. I don't want to really share news stories because I don't care much about that. It's usually just kind of gossip and doesn't have a lot of impact. I like to tell people or teach people how I think as a fund manager. Most economists are terrible investors if you look at their track records. And so all I care about when it comes to the economy and finance is what effect does that have on my investment portfolio? How will it affect me and my clients in my Velshire Partners hedge fund? Okay. So hopefully some plebs will find value in it. It won't be just macroeconomics, finance, and Bitcoin, but these will be major themes throughout these talks. Never am I giving you individual investment advice. I will share some tricks and techniques that I personally use. So take everything with a grain of salt. If you don't like anything I say, that's totally fine. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just sharing my ideas with you. All right. So I wanted to start with, and I think I'm going to get onto a little cadence like this, where I want to, hang on, open chat. Yeah. Okay. Lewis, we'll get back to you. Thanks, everybody. By the way, if you guys are listening to this live, tell me where you're coming from too. I just want to hear like where people are from. So if you're, I don't want to dox you, but if you're comfortable doxing yourself, let me know where you're listening in today. So, anyways, I'm going to start with questions, comments from the last show, and I'm hoping to make this a regular feature. So Jim Jones 3482 asked a bunch of good questions and had some good comments. So I wanted to address some of them. He says, first, if you had to choose between Riot and Strategy for this cycle, which would it be? That's easy, Strategy. Riot are building their Bitcoin reserve nicely, yes, but they are also much more likely to sell during a bull than Strategy. Also, yes, I mentioned on the show yesterday, which was a fiasco, but still pretty fun, that I don't like public Bitcoin miners as investments. I think that they were sort of the darlings of the last bull market back, which ended in 2021, because there were no other Bitcoin proxies, right? All we had was the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which was junk. I had that in my fund, and I actually it really hurt my returns for our brokerage account because it went from basically a premium to the net asset value to the NAV to a discount over time. So it actually ended up performing very poorly. So Bitcoin miners were the go-to um, Bitcoin proxies. It's very different this time around. Strategy is just basically a levered long way to play Bitcoin. So if you think that Bitcoin is going to go higher, I think it's very reasonable to assume that Strategy will go significantly higher because it's leveraged long. Now the downside of that is it's going to be much more volatile than Bitcoin itself, which is already very volatile, and it's going to have some serious downside downside optionality when the bull market ends. So if and when the bull market does end, be very careful with MicroStrategy. If Bitcoin goes down like 75% or so, I would expect Strategy to go down even more than that. So just beware, buyer beware. I do think it's a very good long-term play, by the way, for people who just don't want to own straight up Bitcoin. I do think everybody should just, honestly, my blanket advice for everyone is just buy and hold Bitcoin. Have a dollar cost averaging strategy, and don't worry about the price. That's what I do individually. Personally, for me and my family, I just dollar cost average, and I live on a Bitcoin standard. But this is for my fund, so that's why I talk about it. People like to be degen traders, so I like to, throw carrots out for the degen traders. Love it. Drew, welcome back to the second live podcast, Study Germany. Um, welcome from Deutschland, right? Guten Morgen, or I don't know what it is there. Guten Nacht. It's probably evening there. Drew from India. Hey, man. Lewis from Spain. Man, you guys are from everywhere. In Quasi in New York. Any thoughts on MSTY? I avoid it. Yeah, I don't get into those other products, those structured products. They have too much downside as far as I'm concerned, and they're not fun to manage in a hedge fund. Okay, I want to get back to Jim Jones, 3482 questions. If I had to choose between an S&P 500 index fund and all world fund now, I would still go with S&P 500. I still think the US is the place to be. I think the new administration, right, the Trump administration, love them or hate them, and I generally like what they are doing generally. And why I mostly like them is because they are going to decrease regulations. Decreasing regulations and lowering taxes just has a positive effect, right? It's a positive effect on businesses. I'm a small business owner as well. It will have great upside effects for me and my family. I'm ecstatic for small business owners who have been struggling mightily since about 2021. I think they're finally going to get some relief in 2025. So I think the U.S. is the place to be again this year. Number 3 from Jim Jones, you said you don't own gold. Correct. I used to own gold, and then I discovered Bitcoin, and I realized that everything that's good for gold is 10x or 100x good for Bitcoin. So why would I even own gold? Funds asset weightings, Jim, I'm not going to share that. That's a little too granular and personal. But over time on this stream, I will show you what I do invest in. And so sorry, I'm trying to do that. I will show you what I invest in. I'm totally fine. I'm open source about that, but I can't give away all of the secret sauce. But I will give away a lot of the secret sauce if you pay attention to how I run my hedge fund. I will say, by the way, and this is not me flexing, but because I'm a Bitcoin friendly fund, according to Barclay Hedge data, they have a big database of hedge funds. My fund was the top performing multi-strategy hedge fund in the world in 2024. And so a lot of people talk about, like, they give their advice or their analysis, and you pay for their stock recommendations or trading recommendations. I'm just telling you that there are ways to do it right and there are ways to do it poorly. And I'm not bragging, but I've been around the block many times, and I'm fortunate to have discovered Bitcoin. And I went through a degen crypto trading phase from about 2015 or 2016 all the way through about 2020 until I finally learned to go basically Bitcoin only and to focus mainly on Bitcoin. So my huge advice to people is, as a libertarian, I think you can feel free to speculate in whatever you want, but make sure to actually save in Bitcoin. So yeah, Texas, results matter, right on. I agree, results do matter, and a lot of people don't care about it. By the way, hey, if anyone over on Zapstream, there's only 8 viewers there now, but oh, hey, Relic, you zap. I was just gonna say, if anyone could try zapping on there, I just want to make sure to see if it works. And Relic, shout out to Relic, my first ever zap for thinking out loud. 10 sats. Thanks, brother, or I assume your brother. Thank you, Relic. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's get back to this. Feedback, I appreciate the feedback. Hey, you know what, Jim Jones, if I do get enough zaps, maybe I will buy a better mic, and I'll figure out how to normalize the volume. I don't know how to do any of that. I'm using Riverside to do this, and they take care of most things. I'm really stupid when it comes to technology, so a lot of people recommended some open source platforms, and they were just way too complicated for me. I will talk about chart sharing. I'll try to describe them more for the people who are only listening and not watching the show, but I recommend watching on either YouTube or ideally on Zapstream. And then suggestions for people: Joe Carlosari, Pierre Richard, Macroscope. That would be great. I am, I have a lot of contacts in this space, a lot of friends. I'm hoping to get them on there. And like I said earlier, not to do traditional interviews, but just to have conversations with people. So stay tuned for what's next. So let's get into it here a little bit. I actually did a little presentation because I thought it'd be a good way for me to, get my thoughts in line and organized. So here we are. Why am I optimistic? There are a lot of bears out there. For some reason, there are a lot of recessionistas, bears that are kind of my age, right? They're Gen Xers. There's some boomers too that are very bearish. They keep calling for the end of the world. They show that, price to earnings, price to sales ratios are at record highs. We haven't seen them since 1929 and 1999. Look at the CAPE ratio. Look at all these things. We are going to have the crash of a lifetime. I know, like, I don't like calling out names. By the way, I don't like slandering people. And everyone is welcome to their own beliefs. And I have my own, and I'm wrong a lot. But I think the recessionistas just are wrong. They've been wrong since 2023, and they continue to be wrong in 2025. And I think they're actually going to be really wrong as 2025 plays out. And I'll get into why. Justin, yes, 2 days in a row. Yes, it won't happen probably like this in the future, but I'm just I want to keep doing these initially, at least, to work out the kinks. Yesterday, for anyone who watched, was kind of a fiasco. Today, hopefully, is going a little bit better, but still have lots to learn as far as how to run my own show. So why am I optimistic? First, banks are loosening lending standards. I don't want to show data from other sources, but it's very clear if you look at this data that this is happening. You can look at the SLOOS, right, which is basically the reports from bankers of, are they loosening or are they tightening lending standards? And across the board, lending standards are being loosened, which means it's easier for small businesses to have access to capital. So that's a good thing, right? So people who are trying to start a small business, who need some funding, who go to banks, they haven't been able to get funding in the past, but now that's starting to loosen up, and I expect that to actually get better in the coming year. So watch out for this, and that's a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because increased loans mean expansion of the monetary supply. When you're expanding credit, you're creating new money, and you're increasing M2. So both in the U.S. and around the world, we're going to see the M2 monetary supply start to increase more and more. That's a good thing, and that means businesses are starting to rev up, both in the U.S. and increasingly so around the world. So generally speaking, like I said, a growing global M2 monetary supply that's bullish for risk assets and especially Bitcoin. Why does any of this matter? Why do I talk about that? Why does everybody and their grandma talk about global M2 now? It's because it has a profound effect on risk assets and especially Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I call it the great absorber of liquidity. So as liquidity is expanding, the price of Bitcoin generally expands as well. So more reasons to be optimistic. Small business optimism and CEO confidence have skyrocketed since Trump's reelection, like amazingly skyrocketed, not like just a little bit, but like people are psyched that Trump is back in office. And again, whether you love him or hate him, he is very friendly to businesses, and he's very friendly to small businesses. The last administration, I can promise you, as a small business owner, they were very unfriendly to small business owners. Their regulations are absolutely out of control. Taxes are out of control. Everything is terrible. It was terrible, but now things are looking better. So I'm very personally optimistic, and it's not just me. It's being reflected in the data across the country. Another reason to be optimistic, the dollar is breaking, right? So we've been talking about that. I talked about it yesterday. In the fourth quarter, the dollar just shot higher. Basically from the end of September all the way into early January. It's finally breaking. It topped out at about 110. I'll show a chart a little bit later, but I just want to stay on this slideshow here for now. But trust me on that. It peaked out and now it's lower. Trump wants a lower dollar. The whole world wants a lower dollar. The dollar, when it gets too strong, becomes a wrecking ball. We talked about reasons why yesterday, so I won't go into it. But a breaking dollar, a weakening dollar is good for risk assets, and it's generally good for Bitcoin as well. Number 7, most people underestimate the economic growth potential for 2025. I think this is the most important issue in finance right now, and I don't hear anybody talking about this. I think as 2025 goes on, especially as we head into the second half of 2025, I think the US economy is going to start to run really hot. So the ISM manufacturing has been in a recession or a contraction basically since early 2022, and it finally just popped above 50 with the last reading, which means it's finally expanding. It's finally out of a recession for the first time in like 2.5 years. That's a super, super big deal, you guys. And what most people don't get, especially in the Bitcoin space, is Bitcoin, besides responding well to global M2, it also, and these things are kind of closely correlated, as you can imagine, it does really well when manufacturing is expanding in the US and around the world. And so I expect to see a very strong economy in the US, and it's going to surprise almost everybody to the upside as 2025 goes on. Now, there's going to be months where it's going to surprise to the downside, right? Like, for instance, I think inflation is going to surprise to the downside. The February reading will surprise to the downside. And so, take everything I'm saying with a little bit of grain of salt. I'm talking about the year in general. We're going to see generally surprising to the upside growth and generally surprising to the upside inflation. So just like point number 8, what does that mean, by the way? If the yields of the long dated treasury bonds are based on future growth and inflation expectations, that means, in my mind at least, that we should see higher, not lower, treasury yields on like 10, 20, 30-year treasuries. So expect them to go above 5. I'll be surprised if at some point in this year, 2025, they don't go above and actually hold above 5%. So we'll see. But that's just what happens when you have a strong economy and you have strong inflation. Let me look at the questions here. Looks like they're coming through from YouTube. Hey, Doctor, Texas, when do you think the exchanges will essentially run out? I don't think they will run out of BTC. I think people talk about that too much. I think, any short-term issues will get quickly fixed. There are always buyers and sellers for Bitcoin at any price. I'm just telling you that. And so I don't use that. That has, for me, no impact on how I invest and or trade. Thanks, Doctor. Pumped about the new YouTube channel. I am too. I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, and I finally just thought, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And so here we are. So it's really a hack job, but I'm already having fun. So take home point number one, stocks generally don't crash materially, at least, when economic growth and inflation are accelerating. So this is the main reason why I think the recessionistas are wrong. I think throughout 2025, we are going to have surprisingly strong economic growth in the US and inflation. And when you have economic growth accelerating and inflation accelerating, you just simply don't have huge crashes in the stock market, and you don't have huge crashes in the price of Bitcoin. You can have short-term drawdowns, which I fully expect, by the way, and you should too. Expect Bitcoin especially to have drawdowns of 20 to even 30 or 35% throughout the bull market. All of those are great buying opportunities as far as I'm concerned. Doot, 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 doot. So you mentioned that you expect to draw down. I don't know what WTR. What is that? The study. Tell me what that symbol means. WTREGEN. I know it's one of the trading view things, but I can't think of it on a live show. John, some long-term macro guys on X are predicting a run-up in the equity markets and then an 80% market crash and a relatively short-term depression followed by runaway inflation. Sure, John, that's possible. But I don't know. For now, everything is bullish. So at some point, we will get overheated. I think the stock valuations will get even more egregious to the upside. Multiples will expand even higher. That's what happens in a bull market, and especially that's what happens when the global M2 monetary supply is increasing. So I expect that to significantly increase throughout 2025, especially towards the second half of 2025. And then, yeah, at some point, it's going to have gone too far, and there's going to be so much leverage built up in the system and so much optimism that there just won't be any more buyers. And then that's when the bear market will start. So buckle up on that. Study. The Treasury General account. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so I said that I expect it to draw down. Why? Because we're coming up to shoot. What's the deal? The debt limit, the debt ceiling. Okay, I call it. It's a pretend ceiling, right? The debt ceiling in the U.S. is more like a debt cloud. It looks like a ceiling, but you can just float right through it. So there isn't ever really a true debt ceiling. So basically what a debt ceiling means is the government can't borrow any more money. So they have to use their reserves. One of their primary reserves is what's called the Treasury General Account, which is basically the checking account for the US Treasury. So when we pay taxes in the US, that money goes into the Treasury General Account, right? That's their cash. So money is going from the people to the government. And then when the government still has to spend money, but it can't borrow anymore, it has to take it directly out of the little side pockets of liquidity that it has. And one of the main ones is this Treasury General Account. So I expect that to go, and I think, and I don't quote me, but it's around maybe $850 billion right now. That's a lot of liquidity that they can pump from the government to the people, which then flows into risk assets if they need to. So I expect to see that number draw down, especially if we hit that debt ceiling and start to have issues with that. It's actually it's counterintuitive, but it's actually bullish for liquidity when we hit a debt ceiling. Yo Bob, Big Boss Ross. That's funny. That's the nickname for the president of the university where my kids go. They call him Boss Ross. But I'll be Boss Ross too. Okay, take home point number two. In a bull market, all dips are for buying. I hope that's just intuitive to you guys, especially for Bitcoin. I see a lot of people panicking, and people and thankfully among Bitcoiners, very few people actually do this. Right? We aren't degen traders. Most people just buy and hold and dollar cost average. Please just keep doing that. If you see huge red candles during a bull market, meaning a huge drawdown in the price, that's a great time to buy more, smash buy some more if you have some cash on the sidelines. Easier said than done. Most people just put all their cash into Bitcoin once they get it. That's what I do anyways. Take home points number three. By the way, this is for infotainment purposes only. I'm not giving individual investment advice ever, not ever. I'm just me thinking out loud, okay? Okay, great. Quote of the day. I'm going to start doing this. First quote of the day ever. I'm giving it to Matt Odell. Stay humble, stack sats. You all know this quote. It's honestly the best quote in all of Bitcoin, and it can't be improved upon. So shout out to Odell. Love you, brother. Man, that's a great quote. I can't improve on it. I'm kind of a wordsmith and I can't improve on that. That's just fantastic. Another just sort of public service announcement. I only use Nostr for social media. So this is super important, you guys. I nuked my Twitter X account back in, I think, September of 2024. I nuked my Facebook account. I never had an IG account. There's a imposter account on Instagram. I think that has over like 20,000 people. It's a Vailshire account. That is not me, you guys. It's an imposter. It's a scammer. Please report it. Don't follow it. Um, LinkedIn, I nuked that account. I've never been on Snapchat. I don't have a Telegram account or anywhere else. The only thing I have is Nostr, and then I have this for this show. I have a YouTube account. We'll see how long that lasts, but I'm hoping to be primarily on Nostr and Zapstream and any other open source protocols, freedom protocols. Here's my public key. Come find me. Here's what I am. You can come find me using this as well. So don't fall for it. Don't get duped. Don't get scammed. Today's guest. In the future, I'm gonna have I'm gonna have guests. Today there's no one. I have friends in the space, like I said, that have lots to offer, that are really smart. I'm the dumb one of the group usually, so I like talking with other smart people and learning from them. And so stay tuned for that. I will start having live conversations. It's not intended to be like a Bitcoin podcast. I'm not trying to compete with other podcasts. It's just me talking, and at some point it'll be me talking with some of my friends. I might even have people that have nothing to do with finance or Bitcoin on here, like my actual, like, just, in real life friends, and we might just be talking about life. So stay tuned for that kind of stuff. If you guys have ideas, by the way, for me for guests, maybe throw that out on like Nostr and tag both of us and say, hey, you should go on Jeff's show. That would be cool. Okay. Trading view indicators. So this is what I'm going to do next. By the way, this any specific request is if you guys have like specific stocks that you want me to look at, or specific assets, I can show you what I do literally for my within my hedge fund, and I'll just tell you, like, hey, would I invest in this thing right now or would I not? Let me share something else, and let me do window, and let's do this, share. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this now. Let me move this actually over here. I think you guys can see this now. Zapstream. Hey, shout out to, I don't know who NPub15NJRJ3VF is, but I got Zap 21 sats. Thank you. Oh, hey, that's Sats Dragon. Okay, it just popped up. Hey, Sats Dragon, you've been helpful to me on Nostr. Thank you, and thanks for joining the show. You guys, these are my first ever Sats for doing live stream. This is pretty exciting. Someday I'm gonna, make Odell and Marty Bent cry with how many Sats we're chalking up here. Okay. This is going to be the last thing. Like I told you yesterday, what I do every day as a fund manager is I pop up my trading view. The reason I'm showing you guys this is because I know that this stuff costs a lot of money. I know there are people that just can't afford to buy things like a trading view subscription, even though you can get, I think, a free version of it that I used to use that wasn't very good. But you can do a lot more with it. And I barely have scratched the surface with TradingView, but this is what I use for my thinking through how I run my hedge fund and make my own personal decisions. So yeah. Okay. So let's go over it again. So like I said yesterday, here's how I start. At the top, I have the yields of most of the yield curve, right? 1 month, 3 month, 2 year, 10 year, 30 year treasury yields. It was inverted or distorted for a very long time throughout most of like 2023 into 2024. It just uninverted, or it's normalized, so it's re-steepened again. So now it's more normal. The only thing that's a little abnormal is the 2 year is below these shorter term 1 month and 3 month, right? The yield is 4.24%. But then it does what it's supposed to do, where it increases over time. You should get paid more dollars if you're going to invest for a longer term. So longer term, and the way I think about this, and a lot of people complicate this, by the way, they talk about treasury auctions failing and all this kind of stuff, and other nation states aren't buying. I think most of that is just kind of nonsense, honestly. It sounds smart, but it's not super practical. I think the best way for commoners like me and you probably to think about treasury yields, especially long dated treasury yields, are what are the future growth and inflation expectations here in the United States. And right now they're saying if you combine economic growth with inflation expectations, and you added those two things together, it would be about 4.5% or so. What I'm telling you from what we talked about earlier, where I think these are going to surprise to the upside, is I think these yields are going to move higher throughout 2025. And I think by the end of the year, we're going to hear the Federal Reserve talking about what do we do with this overheated economy? Should we start slowing it down? I think Trump will have a lot of things to say about that. You don't want to slow down a booming economy, but the central bankers will want to do that, and Trump won't want to do that. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Let me get back. Lewis asks ideal portfolio mix, a MicroStrategy Bitcoin. So I don't like giving individual advice. I think for 99% of people, the smartest thing you can do is honestly just dollar cost average into Bitcoin and live on a Bitcoin standard. Pay your bills. There are ways to do that now. Shout out to Jack Mallers and Strike. You can literally have your paychecks instantly converted to Bitcoin if you want to, not even think about the price. When your bills come due, they automatically convert instantly back into dollars and get paid. I think at some point, hopefully in the next 4 years with this current administration, hopefully we will be able to pay bills in Bitcoin. Hopefully Bitcoin transactions won't be taxed. I think more Bitcoiners should be pushing legislators and start promoting this on social media and to friends and family. Bitcoin is money. It's just like the dollar. We should be able to buy and sell things with Bitcoin, and we shouldn't get taxed on it. So tell your friends, tell your Congress people. So, anyways, side note. So these are the Treasury yields. We looked yesterday at. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Let's see. Let's go to VIX. Okay, so I look at VIX still trending generally lower. Like I mentioned yesterday, when you see these huge spikes like we had during the first week of August of 2024, during a bull market, these are almost always for buying. When you see huge spikes in volatility, that means people are panic selling. That means people are getting liquidated and they don't want to be, meaning they're getting margin called. And so the most liquid assets get sold first. That's generally a fantastic buying opportunity. Again, not investment advice, but it's a very good concept for you to have down. When you see everyone panicking, that's generally the time to be buying. Don't get sucked up into it, especially with Bitcoin, you guys. The dollar, like I talked about earlier, see here it peaked at 110 and 17 cents, and then it's broken lower. I think this, if I had to guess, I would say that this week here was the highest the dollar price, the Dixie, will be for all of 2025. I think in general, we're going to see lower dollar prices. I could be wrong. It could spike higher temporarily, but in general, it behooves the Trump administration to have a lower dollar. And if we have a generally lower dollar, that's good for global liquidity. That's good for U.S. business. That's good for risk assets, and it's great for Bitcoin. So that's my guess. I'll kind of go through some things. So the SPX S&P 500 still in a very strong bullish trend. I use this, you guys, for my hedge fund. Okay, so this is this line right here. This orangish yellow line is the 50-week moving average. So it's basically a yearly moving average. These are weekly candles. I don't trade anything less than weekly now. I used to trade daily stuff, but even that got to be too much trading for my fund, and I don't like that. I want to be as long and strong as possible as long as bull markets are raging on. So until this breaks down, until NASDAQ stocks break down, until the S&P 500 breaks down, we are still in a very strong raging bull market. Anytime the price gets down closer to this moving average, I just consider it to be buy opportunities. If it breaks below, like it did back here in 2022, right? You all remember the bear market of 2022? That was painful. The trend will tell you. The trend is your friend. I have my macro takes, but I back everything I do with momentum. So I have to have in order to be invested in things, it has to be, first of all, an asset that I think is a great long-term asset to hold. Second, it has to be the right macro conditions, whether bullish or bearish. And then three, the trend has to agree with me. So if I'm bullish on something, like I'm bullish on US large cap stocks, the S&P 500, then the momentum indicators should confirm that. And they have been confirming that since all the way back in early 2023. Hopefully that makes sense. Quasi, you'd be, aside from macro and Bitcoin, I'd be interested in your thoughts on the issues within the US healthcare system and potential ways to improve it. Man, Quasi, I have a lot of stuff to say and it's almost all negative. You can look back a couple days ago, I posted on Nostr about this, that the system is broken, and not just the healthcare system, right? The military system is broken, the education system is broken, the agricultural system is broken, right? Like, so I have like great respect for doctors and other healthcare professionals, and they come into healthcare thinking that they're going to help save people and fix people and make people better, and then the system diverts and distorts them, and it has it's incentivized to do different things. And I will talk about this more on future episodes, but it's because of the federal government and their incentive structure, and it is not to help humans survive and thrive. It's for the federal government to grow larger and stronger and more pervasive. The federal government is basically, for the most part, antithetical to human happiness and thriving, and I believe that very strongly. I think we should end the federal government, and we should end the Federal Reserve, and we should end federal income taxes. I have lots of strong opinions on that, and we'll get into that in future episodes. Stablecoin legislation, let's hold off on that for a little bit. I think they are a lot like CBDCs. The dollar is by far the best fiat currency in the world. So it's great for people in other countries to have that, relatively speaking, relative to their terrible government fiat currencies, which are way worse and way more inflationary and even more, well, at least as full, at least as corrupt and full of fraud as the U.S. dollar system is. Maybe not, but at least the dollar is more stable than these other country currencies, and so people want access to these stable coins, and I think that's only going to increase over time. I don't think there's a huge difference between stable coins and CBDCs, to be honest. I think the government can, just like the government can control centralized social media and shut down dissidents, and call everybody, call it misinformation if people disagree with them. I think they can do the same thing with stable coins, with Tether, with Circle. I'm not a big fan of it, obviously. I want to defund the entire world's government fiat currency system, and we actually will succeed in that with Bitcoin. So hopefully people will have easier and easier access to Bitcoin around the world. It's not just a way to make money, you guys. It's a way to survive and thrive. It's a way for quality of life to improve, for quality of products and services to improve, with an ever lower cost, because technology is deflationary, as my friend Jeff Booth often says. And hopefully you guys are familiar with his work. Shout out to NPUB1NMH7P4E for the 210 sats. That's my highest ever zap on this show. So thank you so much. And then my Path to Fire 21 sats. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Nice one to you too. And I agree with what you just said. Stable coins basically are CBDCs. So I'm not a fan of them. But I know that they will, I think they will get much, much larger and much more popular over time. What else do I want to show you here? We talked about these other things. I like to look at what oil's doing. Oil is basically consolidating, chopping sideways. I actually expect oil to probably get cheaper, because I think the drill baby drill mantra that Trump speaks, I think is actually legit. I think he means what he says, and I think the decreased regulations are going to cause a huge revolution, or I don't know if revolution is the right word, but a huge surge in the production of oil and natural gas. I think that the unreliable sources of energy, even though they're very romantic, like wind and solar, they're sort of a good idea conceptually, but practically they're terrible, right? They're unreliable. They don't work on a large scale. They're great for individuals. I don't begrudge people at all. If you want to put solar panels on your house, and lower your energy bill, that's fantastic. No problem with that. You want to put a big battery pack on your garage wall, to suck up the extra energy. Great. The stuff does not work at a large scale, though. It's ridiculous. Anybody who understands economics at all understands that these are just like pipe dreams. They're like only kids would think that this is a good idea for huge energy grids. So, anyways, I think we are going to see a resurgence in the next 4 years of oil, gas, even coal, and nuclear energy. And those have investment implications as well. So, but the way to think about it is just because we have a resurgence in oil production doesn't necessarily mean that oil companies will do well, right? There's a difference between the price of what the commodity does and businesses that run it do. So we can talk about that too on some later date. Michael, welcome. Just joined. What's your outlook for small mid caps? Will they benefit from Trump policies? Yes, I think so. But I'm waiting to see, like I mentioned yesterday, I am waiting to, well, and this graph is pulling out. It's funky for some reason. This is supposed to be, it's all out of whack for some reason. But what this is U.S. net liquidity, and U.S. small cap stocks and mid cap stocks and micro cap stocks, basically small businesses in general, tend to correlate with what U.S. net liquidity is doing. What this isn't showing, and I'm just going to get off this because it's embarrassing. Here, let me go to U.S. small cap stocks. Okay, IJR is one of the symbols. You can do IWM as well, which looks about the same. You'll notice that it peaked here back in 2021, November of 2021, and then it's been, lower, chopping sideways in a crabbish market. And it's it tried to break out here when Trump got elected, and then now it's back in here. That's because U.S. net liquidity continues to be range bound. So watch for that. So when U.S. net liquidity starts to break higher, meaning, and the way that will happen is either the Fed will stop doing its slow QT that it's doing right now. It's still allowing the runoff of U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities off of its balance sheet. So if it stops that or reverses that, and or if the Treasury general account, like we talked about earlier, if that starts to get drained significantly, that will cause U.S. net liquidity to shoot higher, which I believe will cause, because they're very heavily correlated, it will cause U.S. small caps, micro caps, mid cap stocks to start moving higher. But until we see that happen, I'm not holding my breath. People have been holding their breath since back in 2021, and they've been pretty disappointed with the return so far. But yes, I do expect that to get better throughout 2025. I think this is the year that they finally break out to the upside. And shout out to the, whether you like Trump or not, shout out to them for reducing regulations and making life easier for people, for small business owners. Small business owners are the heart of America. They are what grow America and make it a better place to live for everybody. So I'm a huge fan of small businesses and less regulation and a less onerous relationship with the government for small business owners. Yield curve uninversion study asks, do I see this as bearish? Why bullish steepening? Usually it's bearish, right? Usually when it uninverts, when it normalizes again, we quickly see a recession. This time is different. And I know everybody says, oh, you said this time is different. And I'm telling you, this time is different. We are not heading into a recession. We're just not. So that's another thing that the recessionistas talk about. It's just that's a good it's a good thing to look at and to consider. And if we hadn't had the huge amount of fiscal stimulus, we would have gone into a recession. We would have been in a terrible bear market in 2022 into 2023. It would have continued and worsened. But the government spending just jacked everything up. And so it basically canceled the recession. And so we're nowhere near a recession. We're actually at the early stages of an economic growth recovery, especially in the U.S., like we talked about at the beginning, with the manufacturing sector finally coming out of contraction. We are going to have a booming economy, I think, by the end of 2025. So that's my take on there. Another zap. By the way, sorry if I don't see your thing. Some people, I got another 21 sat zap. Thank you, NPub 1FM. Oh, it's Anchorite. Hey, Anchorite. Thank you. Appreciate that. Dude, this podcast is gaining steam. Couple more things, and then we'll probably shut down for the day. I want to keep it under an hour for sure. We talked about oil Gold, so it's good to look at gold. Remember that before Bitcoin, all we had was gold, right? And this is a thing that I've been talking about for about 5 years. Three categories of money, right? With fiat currency, it over time guaranteed to debase or depreciate. Gold has been a stable store of value for thousands of years. So literally shout out to gold for being a stable store of value for thousands of years. That's the only way people could at least maintain their purchasing power while the government shenanigans went on and on over the last several thousand years. But then came Bitcoin. Perfect money wasn't possible until we reached the digital age. And we are here, right? And we don't have to get into the properties of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin actually appreciates purchasing power. So it's literally the antithesis of government fiat currencies. Government fiat currencies are tools designed to steal your purchasing power over time, guaranteed. They lose value guaranteed over time. And Bitcoin flips that narrative on its head. Because it's perfectly scarce, because it's international energy money, it can't be controlled or manipulated by governments nearly to this extent that fiat can, obviously. So if you want to appreciate your purchasing power over time, then you should get on a Bitcoin standard. Yes, gold was the OG orange coin, sort of. And I say sort of, I hear you, Anchor. And I was a gold bug before I discovered Bitcoin. So I hear what you're saying. It was a stable store of value for thousands of years. So shout out to them for that. Yes, custody services have arrived. State Street, Citibank, doctor, I hear you. Yes, this is inevitable. It's coming. Whether you like it or not, Bitcoin is for enemies. Whether you like it or not, Bitcoin is for Wall Street. They want to get in on the custody game and they want to start earning fees on Bitcoin and crypto. Unfortunately, crypto is not dead. I thought it might die with the last administration and the last SEC. It did not. That was one thing I got wrong. I thought the SEC would be more powerful and they would actually shut down lots of proof of stake crypto, but they didn't. So here we are. I think we're going to have a lot of. This is going to be just a massive crypto circus. I think in the next 4 years. Greetings, Carl Johan from Sweden. Love Sweden. I'm part Swedish. I went to a Swedish college, so big fan of Sweden. My best friend and his wife are both 100% Swedish too. So, anyways, another thing I look at here. Let's move on to macro. I'm winding down. By the way, if there are any companies or assets that you guys want me to look at, and I can tell you what I would do. Not my recommendations, but how I would treat it if I owned that, what I would do. Okay, so this is the copper to gold ratio. Why does that matter? When manufacturing is starting to take off, what we see is people start, because manufacturing often, involves a lot of copper production, right? And then the increased usage of copper means that the price of copper will go up. That's this XCU in USD divided by gold. So when manufacturing is starting to take off and the world's economy is starting to rev up again, we should see this go like this, right? Here, let me make it obvious for you. Arrow. This is what I expect to happen in 2025. I think that gold, whether or not gold takes a breather, I think copper will start shooting higher. I'm guessing this was a bottom right here. And this is actually a great, almost a classic negative or a positive divergence, excuse me. So see how the price was still going down and kind of it was flat right here, but the RSI is strengthening. That means that we're probably at a bottom right around here. And if we, come back to this chart, maybe, 3 to 6 months from now, I think it's going to break above the 50-week moving average and shoot higher. And we're going to be in economic growth, recovery, expansion again. And that's a good thing in general. We looked at manufacturing new orders yesterday. We talked about why that's critical, why I use that actually to make decisions for my hedge fund. New orders, see this here, ISM manufacturing new orders is a leading indicator. So when manufacturing companies are getting new orders, that means that this is future business coming down the pipeline. And so future business is looking good in the US for manufacturing. And I think this number is going to go higher and higher and higher throughout 2025. So maybe here up in say the 60s range towards the end of the year. Why does that matter? Because when ISM manufacturing goes above 50, you can go back and look at charts that correlate this. that's when the Bitcoin bull markets really start to take off. So do not be short Bitcoin. Do not wait much longer with Bitcoin. Do I want to share anything else? If anybody, somebody earlier on asked a question, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. They're asking about Riot versus strategy. So Riot, let me get the Bollinger Bands out of here because they're ruining it. So if I was a fan of Riot, I used to own Riot and I don't. I actually sold most of my miners. The only exposure I have in my hedge fund right now to miners is WGMI, right? The ETF, which has actually been doing pretty well. And I can show that it looks a little better than Riot does. It looks a lot better than Marathon does. So Riot, here's how I would trade this. See how it's above, see how it popped above the 50-week moving average here in November of 2024. I would have bought in a starter position right here, and then I would have added to it as it stayed above the 50-week moving average. It's held above that. To me, that's actually encouraging. And I think if I had to guess what's going to happen is, you can probably guess what's going to happen. I think it will probably do this throughout 2025. Do I think it will outperform strategy? Probably not, but it could. I don't know. I'm not making a call on that. Could it outperform Bitcoin? It could during the bull market, but it will definitely underperform during the bear market, is how I would look at that. I don't love, like I talked about yesterday, I don't love Bitcoin miners. It's a dog eat dog world. It's super, super, super competitive. You can be the best miner in the world one year, and then you can become obsolete a couple years later, and you have to start all over with your equipment. I don't love owning miners for the long term. Let's go to Marathon. I used to own Marathon until they announced that they mine Caspa, and I just thought, you know what, I'm not into that. I'm not into companies that are like, I think if you're a Bitcoin miner, you should be laser focused on Bitcoin mining and having a Bitcoin reserve strategy. Marathon is doing the reserve strategy part well, but until they announce that they've quit mining nonsense like Caspa, I'm out. And so I personally owned it, and I owned it in the hedge fund, and I sold when they made that announcement. So you can tell by the way I talked about. So here's the 50-week moving average. See how it dipped? It's having a hard time staying above. Now it's probably consolidating, and it's probably going to go up into 2025. But for now, I would not be long Marathon. I wouldn't short it because I'm macro bullish on Bitcoin and on Bitcoin proxies. But if I was bearish on Bitcoin, like if I thought we were near the end of the cycle and I saw, say, Marathon doing this, falling below its 50-week moving average, I would be shorting it right now. So that's just me. So those are my thoughts on miners. Dropped. Okay, you said you dropped. Doctor, I'm seeing your note here. You dropped Clean Spark for MicroStrategy. A good call. I used to own Clean Spark as well. But look at that. It peaked here back in March of 2024, and it's been pretty weak since then. Now, you could make an argument that we have a wedge forming here. And this is kind of technical nonsense, but but the nonsense actually, people here, sorry, let me move this over here. Traders love this stuff, and traders follow this stuff, by the way. So even if you think drawing lines on screens is basically nonsense, some people believe in it. And if enough people believe in something, it causes it changes reality. So here's how I would look at CleanSpark. I think this wedge is forming, and I think that at some point, probably before the summer, this is going to break out. It could break out to the downside or the upside, but because that I'm generally bullish on Bitcoin for the next 12 months or so, I think it's probably going to break out to the upside. Now, again, I wouldn't own this right now. One, because I just don't like miners, like I talked about, and two, and importantly, because it's below its 50-week moving average. So it's bearish right now as far as its technicals. So I would not own that, but that's me. Doctor asked about Tesla. This is kind of what I want to do. If you guys have different things to look at, I'll look at them. Check out Tesla. So Tesla, I will just full disclosure let you know, I own this in my hedge fund. So what did I do? See here, back in August of 2024, it popped above its 50-week moving average. It did it here too, and then it fell below, and then it popped above again. So here I bought some, and then I established a full position right here, and I think my full position size is around $220 within the head. I should say our full position size within the hedge fund is about $220 per share, and it's since popped up. So I've been rewarded this time around. Sometimes I come in and I instantly take a loss, but other times you catch it, and then if you can catch a long-term trend, like check this out. See that back in October of 2019, it popped above. People bought in at $21 a share. You didn't know if it was going to go back under, right? It popped up, went below, popped up, went below, popped up, went below, popped up. This could have been, it could have just popped right back below again, but it didn't. And this was the start of the trend. And that's how I invest within my hedge fund. I have a long-term trading mentality. So got in here, and this wasn't what I did, but I'm just telling you, had I owned Tesla back at here, I actually owned it for parts of it, but I don't want to insinuate that this is what I did back here. But this is what you could have done: is you could have bought it at about $21 to $22 per share and held it all the way through here until it started to get bearish again at $260, right? You would have had a more than a 10 bagger, about a 13 bagger if you had done that. That's what I'm doing right now. So we bought in right about here and started our position. So we're doing pretty well. So good question on Tesla. I like Tesla, right? I know people have a love-hate relationship with Elon. They have a love-hate relationship with his cars. The dude's remarkable. He's love him or hate him, right? He's built some really remarkable companies and accrued a massive net worth because of his skills. Again, whether you love him or hate him, or whether you love or hate Tesla, I think Tesla is going to continue to surprise to the upside with their products. He just has his finger on the pulse of what people want, right? If he really does put out these humanoid robots that people can get in their house for a reasonable price, that's going to take off. I think that will be highly successful. I think his other countries will be successful. His other companies will be successful, and I'm hoping that he folds those other companies like SpaceX into Tesla at some point. Or if it actually goes public, I would probably buy SpaceX. I think it's a great business model. And then Doctor, I see your thing, and I'm gonna wrap up here pretty soon, guys. But let's see. Checking over here on Zapstream. Hey everybody, what's the outlook for Europe? You know, Europe has been in a terrible economic malaise for years and years. They are finally pulling out of it. So I'm generally cautiously optimistic on European equities going forward. I do not like the socialist stand. I mean, they have gone so socialist over in Europe. I feel very bad for my European brothers and sisters. I hope they rise up against. I got to be careful what I say. Remember, these are elected officials, and you don't have to take it, right? You know, think about. I'm just going to stop right there. I think that Europe is looking better. I still don't love investing in them for the long term because of their highly regulatory policies. And I'll just stop there. Let's see, I wanted to get to strategy MSTR. So again, same thing, right? You could have popped into it here at about $26 a share. And now you'd be sitting on a 15 bagger, 13 to 15 bagger here. Yes, it's consolidating here. It feels a lot like this to me. It just went too far too fast here in November, and now it's consolidating. This is a very healthy consolidation. I think that at some point it will break higher. But here's one thing I wanted to show you during raging bull markets, which I think that we could possibly see in 2025, similar to these other bull markets. So here's 2015, 2016. Oh wait, that's MicroStrategy. Sorry, I'm confused. Let me put Bitcoin up. I was confused for a second. Okay, this is pre Bitcoin for MicroStrategy. Check it out. This is Bitcoin 2015 through the peak that most people remember in 2017. If you're around then, where it almost hit 20,000. So this orange line, as you remember, is my 50-week moving average. Here's my 25-week moving average that I think is more appropriate for bull markets. You'll notice that it kisses it, touches it, crosses it many times, but never goes across, never goes below it until the end of the bull market here in January 2018. Okay, so that's case number one. 2021 was an anomaly for many reasons that we don't have to get into today, but similar, right? Here's the COVID crash in March of 2020. It quickly rebounded, the V-shaped recovery, and then it stayed easily above the 25-week moving average until China banned Bitcoin miners right here, which made it anomalous. It tried to surge higher again. Also, by the way, ISM manufacturing also peaked around here, which is interesting. But Bitcoin made a bold move higher here towards the end of the year and then fell below. And then we all know what happened in 2022. Okay. A new year is upon us, 2024, 2025. If I had to guess, I would say that it's unlikely that the price of Bitcoin will get back to touch the 50-week moving average for the next 12 months or so. I'm just guessing, right? This is not individual investment advice. I think it will probably stay above the 25-week moving average for most of the rest of this year. If it gets down to it or below it, I will be probably pounding the table telling people that this is just a fantastic time to be adding to your position if you have any cash on the sidelines. That's just me, not individual investment advice. Texas, you're asking about IBIT. It's basically the same as Bitcoin, right? It doesn't have, it's only been around for, however long this is, since January 2024, so a little over a year. These charts are still young and early. I look at, like, I trade, if I were trading IBIT like FBTC, like the other Bitcoin ETFs, I would trade them exactly like how I would trade Bitcoin. And again, my blanket advice to people is don't trade Bitcoin, just dollar cost average into it. Don't worry about the price. Get on a Bitcoin standard as soon as you can. And let me see if there's anything else. Thanks to everybody who came on today. Semler Scientific is another one. Casey, I see you. They're pulling a strategy, but I don't know them and therefore don't trust them like I would trust Michael Saylor to keep doing stuff. Again, you can love or hate Saylor for what he's doing. I think all businesses should be doing what Michael Saylor is doing to some extent. You should at least have Bitcoin on your balance sheet and in an increasing amount. And if you can leverage it with cheap debt from the public markets, do it. If you know what you're doing. Semler is doing that. I just don't know, I think it's Eric Semler. I don't know him. I don't, so he's probably a good guy. He's a Bitcoiner, obviously, so you can trust him. Guy, thanks for the 121 sats. Let's go. Appreciate you, Guy. Yeah, so he has a good track record so far. You know who I do trust, by the way, is Dylan LeClaire. Dylan LeClaire works for MetaPlanet now, which is based on the Japanese stock market. I think that stock is up like well over 1,000% now. I don't like owning foreign stocks in my hedge fund. I actually did for a little bit, but then I closed it because the position because I don't want to own foreign stocks because of tax issues for my clients. But Dylan I worked with him directly and personally over at Bitcoin Magazine and Bitcoin Magazine Pro for several months. He is the real deal. I think he's a good guy. I think he's one of the smarter people out there. I think he's a match for Saylor, actually. And if you can find a really smart, good person who understands Bitcoin and who understands things like arbitrage and leverage and how to access public markets, and you can invest alongside of them, why wouldn't you do that, right? Why, if you could invest in my hedge fund, and I'm not comparing myself to them, but at basically no cost, right? And have somebody do leveraged Bitcoin for you. Why wouldn't you do that, right? If you just buy a stock, all you got to, you can, most brokerage platforms, you can buy stocks for free now. I have to charge a management fee for my hedge fund. But you could be with people who literally, work the markets and leverage Bitcoin legally and basically for free and own an equity stake in that company. So anyways, I just shout out to Dylan. Dylan, if you're listening, you're a good dude. I think he's got a very, very bright future. Big fan of Dylan. So anyways, that's all I'll say about that. Anything else? Covered calls on Bitcoin. I would not do covered calls during a bull market. You can if you want. It seems like a great idea until the price spikes, 50% above your your strike price, and you're like, oh shoot, I probably shouldn't have put calls on this. So I would not do it on Bitcoin during a bull market personally, unless you think we're at the end of a bull market. Then yeah, throw covered calls on at the very end, and that can be a good strategy. But I would not do it during a bull market. You'll risk losing too much of the upside. Doctor, looks like GME and all those zombies will end up doing the same. Yep, I think we're going to see more and more companies do that. I don't think we're going to have an avalanche of companies. I think it's going to be a trickle this cycle, but it's going to be enough to push Bitcoin price, I think, up into the 200K to 1 million range during this cycle, probably during the next 12 months or so. We'll see. But I don't expect a flood of companies to come in doing that. But it's encouraging to see people getting off zero, right? And it's encouraging to see states pushing through legislation to get off zero, and the federal government to push through legislation to get off zero. So I'm encouraged. And guys, I think we've been going long enough, right? This has been over an hour. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to those who zap me. It's super encouraging. I am unworthy of your zaps, but I appreciate you. And I don't know when I'm going to do the next show. I'll just kind of do them when I feel like it. And like I said, in the future, I will have guests on eventually, and we'll just hang out and chat and talk about stuff. And it won't always be finance and Bitcoin, but it will probably be some because I love talking about it. Okay, so that's it. Take care, y'all. God bless you, and and let's have a great weekend. Happy Valentine's to everybody as well. All right, I am going to shut her down now.